Hello, welcome to Showcase Salem, everyone. My name is Peter Alachi. I'm so happy to be today with my guest Dan Tremblay. You may recognize him as the host of Derby Street Variety Show and New Englanders as well. Now, when do these shows air on SATV?
Well, New Englanders, first of all, I started many years ago because I wanted to do a show about what people around here do. Everything from hobbies to work to activities that have something to do with contributing to people in Essex County. Found it to be a very fascinating place to do the show. So I started doing it, and the show can cover anything from a historical account to an ongoing event of some kind, such as the Salem Maritime Festival, which I normally shoot every year. And then what I do is I basically edit the show and farm it out to about 22 different cable access stations here in Essex County. And it also goes out via the access stations worldwide on the internet. And here in Salem it runs during the week, usually at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I believe, Wednesdays or Thursdays. And the Derby Street Variety Show is all about musicians because I am a musician. And I'm very intrigued by this town and the interest there is in promoting music and entertainment. And as opposed to Boston, where you have the bigger venues, here we have the smaller venues, and they're closely related to the local businesses, restaurants, for instance, and bars, where the venue can be displayed in the form of people who come for open mic night and bring their entourage with them and cheer them on. And also it gives me a chance to bring some of these people in here and put them on the Derby Street Variety Show and put them on television. And that show as well goes out on the same 22 cable access channels and also the internet.
And I've seen that show before many times, and you get all sorts of talents, right? You get the very talented and not so very talented, and they're all welcome.
Right. We have poets, we have people that dance, we have folk singers, guitarists. Yeah.
And you yourself play the guitar, right? Or you
yes, I do. Yeah.
What else do you play besides the guitar?
Well, that's basically it. I tell a few jokes on the show once in a while. I try not to get myself on the show as often as I can. I try to stay behind the camera and try to maintain some levity while we're doing the show, because we're shooting 2 shows in one night.
Yeah.
So I have musicians lined up in the hallway, and we have to maintain some kind of consensus there as to who's on next and whether they're prepared to go. And some people show up without the proper equipment, others show up with too much equipment, others get lost, and then you got the nights of the snowstorms where you got to cancel everything. So
now what people don't know about you, besides you being a musician and a historian, you're also a ghost hunter. You know something about ghosts, and you're a scientist as well. You studied microbiology like myself, right?
Well, I am basically from a scientific background. I spent quite a few years in the veterinary and in the clinical microbiological field. Spent 23 years in the Army and Air Force. I'm a veteran and retired. And also in public health. I'm a health officer for a town. I retired 2 years ago, and I'm still working there part-time to keep my state licenses. But everything sort of is dislike what I'm doing now, which is all this filmmaking, which is my hobby.
Yeah. You're a filmmaker, but you're a filmmaker with a perspective, specific perspective. What is that perspective?
Focusing primarily on history. Living here in this area, I live in Danvers. There are so many stories to tell about our local history that makes us feel like we're part of a past that's been so important in the life of America, per se. And so I found a niche in reading about and posting stories about this area, and developed over time a series of many different stories, everything from sea life to architecture to burial sites, and put it together in what I call a show, New Englanders, and focus on this area predominantly, and that's where I found my interest. And the next thing I know, I'm developing all these films and showing them in a local major theater and elsewhere.
One of the things I saw in your film, you documented the dig at Derby Wharf. Tell us a little bit about that dig.
Yeah, back in the early 1990s, I was contacted by University of Massachusetts, who were out here doing an archaeological dig in the winter, of course. They didn't want to do it in the summer for obvious reasons. And they dug a huge excavation, I would say something like the size of maybe half a football field, over in front of the customs house. And they shored it up with large pieces of steel shoring and went down about 15 feet into the sediment and started plucking out of that sediment little bits and pieces of things that came off the ships back in the late 1700s, including but not limited to small porcelain pipes, little dolls, pieces of wood that were well preserved, and the actual pier itself. I videotaped the actual pier as they uncovered it through the sediment. It's under the walkway out there in front of the customs house. It was about 5 degrees out there when we were filming. It was extremely cold. I couldn't do it now, but I could do it back then. It was back in the early 1990s. And the bottom line is I was able to come up with some very interesting footage that a lot of people have never seen.
And what's the Paul Revere connection with that dig? Was there Paul Revere artifacts they found as well?
No, it's a film I'm working on now. The USS New Hampshire is a film about basically the sister ship to the USS Constitution. And the Navy basically ran out of money when they built it, so they didn't provide it with the cannonage, the 3-deck cannonage that it required. So they made basically a supply ship, food ship out of it, and shipped it down south, and it was going to answer to 2 other names, the USS Granite State and or the Alabama. They didn't know what to do with it. But it had 3 fires, and the last fire it sank off Manchester, and it's a story I'm working on now where they're bringing up artifacts, these copper spikes that are embossed with the letters U.S., and right next to that embossing is another embossing, Paul Revere Foundry. So that's the show I'm working on now for New Englanders.
Yeah. How do you come about locating shows like that? How do you come up with the ideas?
I meet interesting people. I'm out a lot showing my movies. I'm out a lot looking for locations. The next thing I know, I see a cluster of people getting together and they're talking about something. A lot of times it's a very interesting topic. Like, for instance, Harold Burnham in Essex, who's a master shipbuilder. I go to some of his weekend meetings and I listen to what their plans are. Like, I was just with him the other night here at St. Joseph's Hall, and they're planning to build a Chabaco-style boat called the Pilgrim. And I'm saying, my, that sounds interesting. Maybe we'll do that story. So who knows? A story like that will take about a year to make, probably cost about $16,000. But in the end, I'll have a product that I can show on the big screen and never recover the cost for it, but have a lot of fun and at least have it for the archives of the future.
You're about heritage films. You're also about ghosts, your haunts. What is that side of?
Well, Ghost Stories of New England started as sort of a fluke because I was at Hammond Castle in Gloucester interviewing the caretaker at the time, and he was telling me stories about his daily work around the castle because he lived there in the castle all by himself. And then he started telling me into about half an hour into the interview the other things that were happening at the castle that were not related to his cleanup and his gardening activities there. Things were happening in that building, and his pupils were beginning to dilate. And I began realizing that he's beginning to tell me stories he hasn't told other people. And the next thing you know, he's talking more and more about the ghosts of Hammond Castle. So I got intrigued by this. We made our first film called Hammond Whispers, which is about Mrs. Hammond who died at the castle, which was a ghostly type of story. And then that branched off into Ghost Stories of New England. And today I've got about 70 stories, averaging in length from 4 to maybe 15 minutes, which I've collated into 6 videos. And they're available to the public. And they're all interesting stories about something that's happened here on the North Shore, who's involved with it, and what we found. And in 80% of the cases, I believe we have found evidence of what the people are talking about. Professor Alachi here is showing you some of the videos here that I've got. These are sold actually on the West Coast. They're also syndicated to television stations on the West Coast that don't have this kind of programming. And here I have them primarily for the tourist season. People want to buy them. The monies for these, they're $5 a piece. Can't charge any cheaper than that. The monies for these go right into my next production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of time people don't understand we're all volunteers here. I mean, we really don't get a salary from anybody.
Don't get into television if you plan to make a living.
That's right. That's right. I mean, this is at cost what you're selling here.
Right.
You've been doing it for so many years. We go back about 8 years, believe it or not. I remember bumping into you about 8 years ago in Salem when I first moved in. And you gave a tremendous show to my wife and myself. We were the only 2 there present at the time. And we loved it so much. Ever since we've been coming back to Salem, we see you all the time, of course. So you're, so even though you're from Danvers, you are sort of a resident historian in Salem.
Well, I grew up in Pittsfield, nixed the accent here, and then ended up in, when I got out of the service, having traveled pretty much globally for those needs, ended up in Gloucester, working in marine parasitology, basically checking bugs and fish, and working on government specifications for the sale of fish. And then I merged into the state operation and got my state license, and that's what I did the rest of my days.
So now you have a hobby called Heritage Films. Tell us a little bit about the Heritage Films part. You have a
Heritage Films is diverse. Heritage Films is all my programs from the past. I take the very best ones, the ones that I feel are focused on this area, and have put together all these stories into a mix of movies that I show. I rent a theater at Hollywood Hits Theater on Hutchinson Drive in Danvers. And on Tuesday and Thursday, between 11:30 and 1:30, I show the films on the big screen. I have a brochure with a listing of all the films on there. They can also be seen if you go on Google to Heritage Films at Hollywood Hits. The whole list is right there. And I charge $5 admission, $4 seniors, which basically covers my cost of the rental of the theater. But I am getting some interesting people coming up there, watching the films and then giving me their comments as they leave, that they've never seen anything quite like this before. So I think it's a niche type of a function, and I'm having fun doing it.
It's a niche function, but your films are those kind of films, in my opinion, that really belong in the archives of the Phillips Library or Salem Library, somewhere that people should always value and cherish them and take them out and rent them and so on.
Yeah,
how do you feel about that?
I appreciate you saying that. I'm not obsessed by the fact that they're not. I am a little bit in question, though, as to why schools and I know I've done a couple of programs at Salem State, but why schools such as high schools and middle schools aren't calling me to just come over. I'd be glad to do it. I'd just come right over in my free time and just put on one of these films for the kids.
Yeah.
Free.
Yeah.
I mean, all it does is promote more and more of this.
It's history
no
and
one has ever
entertainment
called me.
at the same time.
No one ever calls me,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
I figure I'll just, if anybody wants to see them, come up to theater,
Yeah.
or wait till you go to an assisted living facility, and you'll
Yeah.
see me there.
Yeah. So what's your recent project here of these that you're working on?
Well,
of these, the one you're saying.
on the ghost stories of New
Ghost
England,
stories, yeah.
the most recent story is the one I did in North Reading at the North Reading Cable Access Studio. The North Reading Cable Access Board rented a vintage 1700s building next to the Flint Library. It was refurbished. Something in the building was disrupted in some way, and I went there and spent 3 days there with the cable administrator, sitting and waiting, and a few things started to happen. It's called the Damon Tavern film, and it's about the ghost of Damon Tavern, which we feel that there are three. One, we've got some very interesting video shot over a 24-hour period of things moving about in two of the rooms. Secondly, a sound coming from another room that can't be substantiated for any reason at all, coming from a fireplace. And the third is a dog, and I have this documented on the video. Dog is looking straight at you through a window on the second floor from the outside in. There's no way for that dog to be standing there.
Some photographs that we found, and one thing we can't really explain is what appears to be the face or the head of a dog in the lower right window of the upper pane. If you look very carefully, you'll see a white dog with ears, eyes, and a nose in the picture.
This was not a reflection in any way.
But
in the window.
how do you know it's not a real dog, though?
I know it's not a real dog. If you saw the film, you'd see what I mean. And it's looking right at you. And several things happened while we were shooting there. And even the gentleman who's there now, he's got me on call for anything else happening. It's a very old building, and it's an interesting story. I do show it at the theater and during my escapades here at Salem TV, if people want to come see it.
Because us as scientists, we have to keep that side of always questioning the supernatural, so to speak.
You have to see it.
We don't necessarily believe in the supernatural, but
no, you don't have to.
But you certainly do, right?
I can only tell you this. People ask me, "Have you ever seen a ghost?" And I say this: everything on these videos that I shot, I saw because I shot it, and it's there. What it is, whether it's a ghost, an animal, a person, energy, I can't really tell you for sure. The best place I can show you where there's some really hot energy is Murphy's Pub here in Salem, on the second floor. If you come there when I'm doing a show, I will show you what that's like.
When you do these shows at Murphy's?
Right now I'm in hiatus for the holiday season, but I'm normally there when I'm not here at Salem TV. If Salem TV is open on Saturday, I'm here. Mm-hmm. If Salem TV is not open here, I'm over there on Saturday, 12 to 3. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here I'm a member, so I get the space. At Murphy's, I basically do his advertising in exchange for, I get a table upstairs, and I get to walk the floor with the dowsers. We have dowsers. I can show you about the dowsers here if you want to.
Sure, yeah.
All right, one of the things I do in my Ghost Stories of New England shows, I show people how to use these. They're simply called dowsers. If you go to Google on the computer and type in the word dowsing, D-O-W-S-I-N-G, there's a little 5-minute video. It'll show you basically the same thing. It takes a little bit of practice, but once you get into this, you can kind of get addicted to it. It does work. It works very well. What we're going to do now is we're going to determine where the energy mass is in this room. When the energy mass is there, it will affect the movement of either one or two of these. They will not necessarily be crossing or going out. They might just have just enough movement to show you that there is a mass. You will feel it. This is not trickery. This is not magic. I'm not a magician, but I'm going to show you how to do this. Basically, there are 2 coat hanger wires. Okay, you get it from 1 wire coat hanger. You take the hook off, you spread it out straight, and you cut it in half with a wire cutter and form a 90-degree angle like this. so that they're approximately about the same length and the same weight. Okay? Lay them across your index finger like this. It's very important you do it this way. And put your thumb right behind it to crimp it. Make sure your other fingers don't touch it, okay, because you'll get interference. Then you take this, and when they're properly tightened or crimped, you can raise it up so that they're aimed forward at about 3 feet apart. Okay? Then you've got to proceed forward to a location in the room. Any location will do. You will feel the tug, you will feel the movement. It's quite pronounced. It works pretty well. So I'm going to do it in this room here. Right now we're in the Salem Access conference room. Nothing unusual about this. As you will see, even though there are sprinkler systems in here, they will not pick up unless there's something very strong in the room. So I'm going to aim this toward where I think there's a fairly good signal, because I just tried it out. I'm about 3 feet apart. I'm aimed forward, not up, not down. I'm aimed forward, okay? Technique is very important or this isn't going to work. So you just get a feel for it. Again, my thumb and my forefinger, and just proceed. And just kind of let it happen. Ooh, it's very, very good here. Ooh, that's very good right there. Very good. See how that crossed? Right, now I'm going to go back.
That means there is a water.
I'm going to let you try it. I'm going to let you try it.
Okay.
No, because I'm going to go back this way now.
Okay. So what is that telling us, though, when you do?
What this is telling us is that there's an interference in here of some kind, probably an ectoplasmic mass. And the ectoplasmic mass, it has a beginning and it has an ending. When I did this at Salem State, we found a large mass in one of the rooms, and we had the students do this, and they did pretty well in finding it and locating it and finding out how far it is. Here we got another one right here. You can see them, they're crossing now. Oh, yeah.
Let me take you back to the Hammond's Whispers. I have never seen that film before. That was your first film you made.
Right. It was basically
How long was that?
Lee
film for?
Daly,
Yeah.
the caretaker, telling me about, like I say, his activities at the castle.
Mm-hmm.
And he lived in Mrs. Hammond's room. And Mrs. Hammond's room had a number of incidents where there have been things happening. One of which was his record player turntable going backwards. His cat basically making noises at something moving across the room that he couldn't see, but the cat was following it with its eyes. Noises, crying, barking, because Hammond had about 8 dogs in that castle. And like I say, I have the film, and it's a myriad of things.
Interesting. The other building, I suppose, is the Salem Jail before it was renovated. You talk in terms of tunnels beneath the jail that emitted sounds, or?
Well, first of all, the Salem Jail, I believe, was closed in 1970-71, and it housed prisoners from the Civil War, and it never really had plumbing in the prison section. That's how antique it was, and it, I guess it exuded a sort of a feeling, and over time, I guess, as the place was closed down, overgrowth began to take over, trees and shrubs and so on. The fence became somewhat rusty. The concertina wire on the top was beginning to erode. But there are areas around the east side between it and the Howard Street Cemetery where there were holes underneath the building. And we knew dead on there was somebody staying there, because they came up through the hole before we started filming, a street person of some kind.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you.
Uh-huh.
But there were sounds and faces looking through appeared to be faces coming through the window. I've got one shot, one photo still of a chair with what appears to be a man sitting looking at me through one of the large windows on the east side of the building. And then the sounds, and then of course the face on the tower, which is plainly seen on the video. Just an interesting place, and a lot of the tour companies here in town take people there at night, and I guess it gives it that extra eeriness to be there at night.
Now that nun, that ghostly figure of a nun that was shot at the Howard Street Cemetery, was it? Or
the Howard Street Cemetery, there were a lot of young children buried there in the early 1800s. And a lot of them died of disease and child-related illnesses. It was very sad for many people, especially the mothers who lost their children. Story goes that there is a grieving woman or women walking among the tombstones from time to time in the cemetery. I was able to get hold of a palm quarter VHS tape, which I slowed down on my video playback unit. I just put it in real slow down pause and re-videotaped it. And in one sequence, we plainly see what appears to be a woman in a nun's outfit peering over one of the tombstones. That's what it appears to be.
But it could be an artifact of the filming itself also, right?
We don't know. I just don't know. You have to see it.
It's a little grainy though, I saw it. It's a little grainy.
You have to see it.
I was wondering if that's a nun or some
object
different
shape,
colors of
something in the background maybe.
Yeah.
Hard to tell.
Okay, so what's next with Dan Tremblay? What's going on? What's happening?
Well, I'm going to continue making films and seeing where everything lies. And there seems to be an interest in this, and people are still very interested in seeing these films. So I'm going to keep doing it. Can't have any more fun than this.
Yeah.
I'm not a golfer.
Right. And if people want to see these films, they can come here on a Saturday or a Sunday. Is that the case?
Primarily September and October is when the board allows me to show these here on a massive scale. I have them here. People want them as well. But here today I'm showing a mix of film, primarily for historical purposes.
Great.
So I've opened it up to the public and see what happens.
But tourism today apparently is pretty dead. I don't see too many people outside right now. But so clearly October is your best month, I would imagine. Right?
Yeah.
So again, give us an idea when your shows are on SATV, and what channel and what time.
All you got to do is go to Salem Gazette. Everything's listed right in there. As a matter of fact, here it is, folks.
Yeah.
Nice little newspaper, and they always print my stuff in there. I'm very, very proud of that.
Yeah.
And there's a section in there for Salem TV. Just read it right off of there, or go to the Salem Access TV schedule on your computer.
Yeah. Before I wrap this up, speaking of newspapers, there was a write-up about you in the Salem News in the spring. Did you see it?
That was probably about my opening the theater up at Hollywood Hits.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Basically, now that I'm retired, I wanted to be doing this. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, 11:30 to 1:30 at Hollywood Hits Theater in Danvers. You can come up. Choose any one of 3 films off my list, because they're each about 28 minutes long, and have yourself a ball, and it's $5.
A bowl of popcorn and a history bowl.
Well, if you buy the popcorn, it's going to be about $7 or $8. So I would say put the candy in your pocket.
But it's education, it's entertainment, it's.
If you come up, you will not forget it. I will be there, and I'll be laughing along with you, crying along with you, or listening to your comments.
Yeah.
So far, everybody likes it.
Great.
So that's where we're at. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, well, thank you. I was just going to say thank you so much for being with us, Dan Tremblay. And hopefully we'll do another show soon.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
And good night, folks, from Showcase Salem. Bye-bye now.